Juggling is the #1 underrated skill for American soccer players, and I can tell you why. But before I do, I am Kyle Wilson, Kyle C. Wilson, the Angry Soccer Guy, and I've been in the youth soccer game for 10 years, working with 2 years old when I had a job with Soccer Shots, to working with professional players and everything in between. Some of the pros that I've worked with, this is not all of them, but some of them, Luis Nani, Benji Michel, Teshua Kandeli, Nico Gavaccini, Ruan Texera, so on and so forth. I've even worked with the generational talent known as Kawan Bazil, who has a $3.5 million contract from Nike and is probably the biggest talent coming out of Brazil right now. Anyways, point being here, let's get the topic at hand. Juggling, in my opinion, is the most underrated skill in the United States. Now, is it the end-all be-all skill? No, it's not the end-all be-all skill. But what it is, especially in a country that does not thrive with the culture necessary to, say, be successful at winning World Cups on repeat, like a country like Brazil has, Spain has, so on and so forth, is it shows a certain level of skill, dedication, and sacrifice to reach an outcome. What does that mean? Great question. It's simple. Juggling is a skill. It takes time, dedication, and attention to practice, to master, to improve, and to be successful in general. Like if you want to be a great juggler, it will take time to become a great juggler. Now, the question then becomes, how does that translate to the game? How does it help your child or your players improve on the field? Well, that's another question and a great point. However, juggling is a key tool for development because it works on touch, works on coordination, works on ball mastery, works on, for example, this is probably the most important one, commitment and focus to completing a task. And a lot of players struggle with this, especially in the American system where we have all the luxuries in the world. Now, example would be, I love to use juggling as a test, especially with American players, because you can very quickly see who has ability or who doesn't have it. So example, let's say you have 10 players. 9 of them can do 3, 4, 5, 6 juggles, but 1 of them can do 100. I'm going to put my money on that the one that can do 100 is a better player than the ones that can do 2, 3, 4, or 5. And it might sound weird hearing that, but juggling isn't the end-all be-all, but what it is, especially in this country, it is an indicator of level. I'm going to say that again. It is an indicator of level. So if a player can juggle, that means they have a certain level of skill achieved. Now, I'm not talking about the freestyle where they do like around the worlds and crazy flicks and tricks where you can go to YouTube and search up World Freestyle Championships. We don't want to develop freestylers. We want to develop football players. Football players, from my humble opinion, focus on juggling with their shoelaces. So there are things that can be improved on. For example, you can juggle a couple, play it up in the air, control up the chest, control up the thigh, control up the inside of the foot, a whole bunch of facets. This is going to improve touch and overall ability to manipulate the ball to your advantage, aka ball mastery. Now, there's also other juggling challenges to determine touch. So for example, one of my favorite ones is around the world, but wait, it's a different around the world compared to the freestyle technique. This one is foot, thigh, head, chest, thigh, and foot. I'm going to say that one more time. Foot, thigh, head, chest, thigh, foot. So the player has to play it from their foot to their thigh, up to their head, back to their chest, back to their thigh, back to the foot, without dropping or catching the ball. That is around the world using what I call game-based juggling, or the shoelace technique, not the toes. Now, interesting point here. When I was a younger player, when I was 13 or 14 years old, a coach from a club called Olympique Lyonnais, who at the time were the #1 club in France. They're historically one of the top clubs, but right now they're probably not. Point is though, this was back in like 2006 or 2007. He came over to the United States and did like a camp or whatever. And he gave a bunch of us a test. The first test he ever gave was juggling. Now, this isn't the end-all be-all. Please understand, I'm not telling you it is. But what I am saying is the first test that he gave was juggling. It was 50 right, 50 left, 50 both, and 50 headers without dropping or catching. And we had 3 tries to do so. So when you hear that, you might go, what's the point of that? Well, do they have touch? Have they mastered the ball? And are they dedicated to practicing something that will improve their skill? Well, juggling answers all of those points. So I want to summarize this for you though. Juggling is not the end-all, be-all, but it is a tool that players use And especially in this country, I think is very important for players to master to get to a high level. And then as a coach or a scout, you can see very quickly, especially in younger players, who has ability on the ball, all because of their touch. How well do they control the ball? How well do they juggle? So again, if you give me 10 players, I can very quickly gauge who's probably the top player on that team based on their touch, how well they're able to juggle with their shoelaces. Very important distinction to note.